All right, hello everyone. Tonight we are going to be going over Unit 2. We're going to be looking specifically at the rhetorical situation and how to approach this paper. It's really important that you're paying attention to your rhetorical situation specifically for this paper. In all writing, you should be paying attention to it, but this one is extra important because that is one of the biggest grading criteria for this paper. But before I get into that, I have been grading some of the topic proposals. And while a lot of you guys have some great topics, I've noticed that quite a few people are proposing a solution as their argument. Okay, you have to remember this is a problem solution paper. So we can't propose a solution until we actually know what the problem is, right? Because your solution should match that problem. So make sure that when you are proposing your topic or turning in your topic tonight, that you are focused on this is the problem that you are going to be arguing about, right? You are proving that this problem exists. Okay, then you can find a solution later on to help fix that problem. Okay, but we're focused first on the problem. Again, you can't fix a problem if you can't have a solution if you don't know what the problem is. Okay, so focus on that first. And we're going to be going through the problem today as well when we're looking at the rhetorical situation. Okay, so if you have a 5 out of 10 on your brainstorm topic proposal, that means that I either just need more clarification of what your actual problem is, or maybe I am asking you to change your topic. Most of the time I don't ask you to change your topic unless it's something that's inappropriate. So most of the time it's just going to be because you haven't told me what the problem is. Okay, I need that clarification. And it will tell you in the comments that I need you to clarify and to resubmit for full credit. Okay, so if you have a 5, go back, read those comments, resubmit with your actual problem. Okay? All right, so what I want to do now is I want to screen share with you because I'm going to be going through a PowerPoint that you actually have for a required reading in week 4A. So, in 1.5 weeks from now, it'll actually be on, I believe it's a reading for Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up so that you guys can see this as I am talking you through it. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay. So we're going to jump over here to the Unit 2 folder. Again, this is a reading for a couple weeks ahead. We're in 3A right now. We're going to go to 4A. And I'm going to pull up this rhetorical situation PowerPoint. Okay, and this is what we're going to be going through. Okay, let's view it as a slideshow. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, so again, tonight we're going to be analyzing the rhetorical situation for a paper. Most of this is going to take you through my example topic just so you can see how this works. Okay, so when we have a rhetorical situation, right, that is basically what you need to analyze before you do any of your writing to so that you have a good understanding of how you are going to communicate your message to your audience. Right, a rhetorical situation has a couple of different elements that you need to think about. It has the text. That is how this is actually being communicated. In this sense, you are writing an essay, right? It's being communicated through an essay. You have an author, which is you. For this essay, you are not taking on the role of an author as a student. Instead, you are taking on the role as a member of an advocacy group. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind as well. Okay, again, I'll take you further through that when we get there. You will choose a specific audience. That's the person who will be reading your paper. Again, you're not specifically writing to me. You are going to be writing to a specific group of people that can help you fix your problem. Okay, again, I'll be going through this further as well. Okay, the purpose of this essay is to persuade, right? You want to prove that a problem exists, and then you want to propose a solution to help fix that problem. Okay, and then your setting, that would be the time, place, and environment surrounding a moment of communication. So it's kind of thinking about like what's happening in the world right now as we do this. So for example, in the past, I had students wanting to legalize marijuana in a state that already had legal marijuana, right? It's irrelevant at that point, right? Because it's already legal. Okay, so you have to kind of think about those things that are going on. What's going on in the world right now, and is this appropriate for right now? Okay, is it timely? Okay, so I want to focus on some of the specifics for our paper. And again, I'm going to be giving you examples to help you kind of visualize what this should look like. Okay, so we're going to look specifically at the problem, which is the purpose, the role, which is the author, and the audience for this paper. Okay, for the problem, first you need to make sure that it is stated as a claim. Okay. What does it mean when I say it needs to be stated as a claim? Does anyone know what a claim is? Ellie Harrison, feel free to clarify. What's the difference between like a statement and a claim?
I would say that a claim is more of like an argument. Like you're making a claim about something.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So, for example, if I make a statement, I can just say like, I like the color blue. Right. Mm-hmm. You can't really argue with me because like that's what it is.
Right. But
right?
A claim would be blue is the best color.
Exactly. So, blue is the best color because then people can actually argue about it. Okay, does everyone kind of see the difference between that? Between I like the color blue is a statement, or blue is the best color is a claim because it can be argued between two people. Okay, so there has to be like at least two sides to the issue so that people can go back and forth between it. Okay, so make sure it is stated as a claim. Okay, you must be able to prove that it is a problem with credible evidence. Okay, you have to show us that this is a problem. Okay, don't just say it is. I've had students in the past where maybe they thought it was a problem because of the experience that they had. Maybe they went to a restaurant and they were served bad food. So now they're saying that this restaurant is terrible, right? What other evidence do they have other than their personal experience that this is a bad restaurant, right? Have they had someone go to the restaurant and do a quality check on the food and they also agree that this is bad by an expert? Right, so you need to have credible evidence to prove that not only you think that this is a problem, but experts think it's a problem as well, right? Show us the evidence that shows it's a problem. Okay, it must at a minimum affect you and others you don't know. Okay, so for example, I could say, my husband's sleep apnea snoring bugs me, right? But that's only a problem that really affects me. It doesn't affect other people I know. I can't argue with anyone about this because it's only a problem that's affecting me. Okay, if I want to talk about how it's affecting me and others I don't know, I can say sleep apnea is affecting the driving capabilities of truck drivers and causing accidents. Right? That's not only affecting me, but it's putting other drivers' safety at risk as well. Okay, so it can't just affect you, it has to affect other people as well. Okay, it must somehow impact quality of life, affect the local economy, or violate human rights, kind of going back to, is it affecting others and in what way, right? It should be impacting them negatively in some way. Okay, it must be localized and limited, meaning that it needs to be localized to a specific area like Idaho or the Treasure Valley. You can choose, if you're talking about a school, you can talk about a specific school. Okay, so the more you can localize it, the more you can cater your writing to that audience. Okay, so try to localize it as much as possible. It could also be a specific group of people. It could be like Idaho voters. It could be working parents in Idaho, something like that. But it needs to be specified. It can't just be Idahoans, because there's so many different values and things that they care about, right? Something that one Idahoan might care deeply about, another might not. So again, you want to try to really specify what that group is as much as possible. Okay, so that you can, again, cater your writing to that group. Okay, so let's look at an example problem. Okay, I've already talked about this in the past, but differing start times between elementary schools and middle and high schools in Canyon County is negatively affecting students and their working parents academically and financially, right? That is what I'm saying the problem is that I would like to talk about, right? The start times of the schools, right? It's affecting both parents and their children. Okay, I could also propose a solution to this, right? Since parents typically only send elementary age students to childcare and there are not enough buses to accommodate earlier start times, one possible solution would be to switch the start times with high schools. Okay, so you can kind of get a visual of what I'm going to be arguing in this paper, right? Both problem and solution. Okay, is this stated as a claim? Yes, it is, right? You could probably argue, right? Some people might not think that the start time is a problem, while other parents might think that it is, right? They can go back and forth on this. Like, yes, it is a problem. No, it's not a problem. I don't really care that much about switching the school times. Okay, so it can be argued. Can we prove that is a problem? We can, right, by bringing up evidence of how it's affecting parents, the cost of childcare. We could bring up the negative effects it has on high school students when they start school too early, because there's tons of studies out there on that, right? I can bring up credible evidence to show how this is problematic in a variety of ways, okay, both to the parents and to the children. Okay, does it at a minimum affect you and others you don't know? Yes, this is not just problematic to me, but it's also problematic to other working parents in Canyon County as well, right? I know that I'm not the only one struggling with this. Okay, and does it somehow impact quality of life, affect the local economy, or violate human rights? I would say yes, it does pretty much impact quality of life and affect the local economy, because, you know, sometimes parents have to choose, like, okay, do I stay at home because I can't afford childcare and that's what I need to be able to get my students on to school on time? And that also impacts quality of life, because again, students are being negatively impacted when they are forced to go to school earlier than their bodies are ready for. Okay, which again, you'd have to look at the evidence to see that. Okay, so yes, this does meet all of the criteria here. Okay, any questions so far about problem? Okay. Oh, and it is localized, right? Yes, it is. I specified specifically Canyon County, working parents and children. So that's pretty specific, because I did both geographic and specific group of people, right? It's very specific target audience. Okay. Either targeted at the problem. I do want to make this note. You can localize it by either targeting it with the problem, right? Because I'm specifying that the problem exists in Canyon County, because this problem doesn't necessarily exist maybe in Ada County. Okay, or you can localize it with your solution. So if you have a national problem, which some of you guys brought up, okay, so you can bring up like the opioid epidemic, okay, and then you can slightly localize it in your problem by bringing up stats in Idaho as well. And then you can localize it using your audience by proposing your solution, right? How are we going to fix this? Maybe you're talking to doctors in Idaho. Okay, you can specify it that way as well. So it doesn't have to be just localized just to the problem. It can be localized to your audience as well. Okay, any questions about that? I know usually people struggle with the localization part. Okay, so your role. You will write from the point of view of a member of an advocacy group. This can be real or imagined. You can make up a group if you want. Okay, but you just have to be playing the role of an advocate for that problem, right? So think about who already agrees that this is an issue. Okay, that's the role that you are taking on. Okay, so for example, my role could be Working Parents of Canyon County, the WPCC, right? Is that a real group? I don't think so, right? But it works. I think these people would agree with me for the most part. Okay, so you can make that up. You just have to make sure you are identifying your role and that it fits the role of your problem, okay, that you would advocate for this problem and solution. Okay, so do you think this group would agree with this issue? Probably, right? Because it's specifically talking about how it affects them. Okay. Any questions with audience? Just don't forget to mention that in your, usually you should put it in your intro, right? So that we know where you're coming from. Okay, so identify your audience or your role, sorry. For your audience, you have two different options of who you could or should write to. Okay, first, you could write to an organization that has the power to make the changes you are proposing. So you would choose this audience based off of whatever your solution is, right? So you may not be able to identify your audience until you figured out what your solution is. Okay, so who has the power to make the changes to my problem? Probably like the Nampa School District, right? They're the ones that could probably help fix the problem, right? Because I can't really do anything on my own unless I took my kids out and put them in a different school district. Okay, but the Nampa School District can control the start and the start times of both of the schools. Okay, so that would be who would have the power to make the change that I'm seeking, right? They can fix my problem. Okay, or you can write to a group of people that can be called to action to help fix the problem. For example, maybe you are wanting to get voters to vote on a certain bill, right? You're calling them to action, right? By them voting on it, calling them to action, having them vote on it, that could potentially fix your problem. Okay, so either whoever does have the power to make the change or who can do something to help make the change happen. Okay, so two options there. And again, you might not know who that's going to be until you have a solution in mind. Okay, so again, my examples would either be Nampa School District or Parents with Children in Schools, right? They both have, the Nampa School District does have the power to make the changes that we're seeking. But if I go with Parents with Children in School, I can call them to action to help fix a problem, right? I can say, hey, let's go to the next school district meeting. Let's let them know that this is a problem to help persuade them to get the ball rolling on this, right? Call them to action that way. Okay, so again, it can be either one, but you need to identify one of them, okay? Because based off of who your audience is, that's going to change the way that you communicate throughout your entire paper. Okay, so you really, really, really need to pay attention to who your audience is. Okay, this is one of our course objectives, is being able to write to a specific audience. Okay, so before you begin writing, always consider the values of your audience, right? What do they care about, right? What should we be touching on when we are presenting our problem and solution? Okay, so what does the Nampa School District care about? They probably care a lot about the money or the budget that's happening, right? And they care about student success, right? Test scores, things like that. Okay, when I think about school districts, that's what I think about. Okay, when I think about parents, they probably care about the well-being of their children, or being financially stable, right? Having a stable home environment, right? That's what I think about as a parent myself. Okay, so when I'm choosing my audience, I need to play off of those values. Okay, even though my argument's the same, the way that I present it is going to be different based off of those values, right? Both the content, the tone, what I decide to talk about, things like that. Okay, so definitely need to pay attention to this. Okay, so when you are writing for your audience, Okay, your audience is the first thing that you need to take into consideration. Specifically, I want you to pay attention to the language and approach, the sources that you're going to cite. So language and approach. Okay, when I'm communicating to the Nampa School District, I know that I can use certain terms that maybe only the NAMPAs or people who work in education are familiar with. Terms like benchmarks, retention, matriculation, right? They know what those words mean, but most people probably don't, right? Does anyone know what benchmarks, retention, and matriculation mean? Everyone's probably like, no, not really. Maybe you have a vague idea, but not really, right? But I know that I can use those words because those people are going to know what those words are, right? I don't necessarily need to break down that information. However, if I'm going to be talking to parents and I want to reach all parents, I need to consider like, hey, they might not know what these words are. So instead, I'm going to switch my language up a little bit and I'm going to make it more easily understandable, right? So instead of saying benchmarks, I'm going to say reaching their goals. Right? Instead of students saying retention, I'm going to say students staying in school. And instead of saying matriculation, I'm going to say students enrolling in college. Right? Those are much more easily understandable by a wider variety of people than benchmarks, retention, and matriculation. Right? Much more easy to understand that way. I'm adjusting my language based off of who my audience is. Okay? Just like when I present ideas to you guys, I say it differently than I would to like my colleagues, right? I use different language, okay? Just like when I communicate to my husband versus when I communicate to my 2-year-old, right? You have to use different language for them to understand what you're saying, okay? Make sense? Okay, all right. Sources. Same kind of thing. You have to adjust your sources based off of who your audience is, right? When I'm writing to the Nampa School District, I'm going to use sources that speak to them, right? Such as data on student success rates, budget costs, access to before and after school programs, things like that, things that they care more about. Okay, Nampa School District is probably going to be really heavy on like numbers. They care about numbers, right? And you can see that in success rates, budget costs, access, right? How many people have access to things, right? All numbers. Okay, but if I'm talking to parents, if I want to speak to them, I'm going to bring up sources that really focus on the well-being of their family, such as a study on how sleep affects teens, costs of childcare, safety, things like that. Right? So again, I'm making the same argument, but I'm touching on different things that more align with their values, right? By bringing up evidence that touches on those values. Okay, some of my points might be exactly the same, right? Like cost of childcare, I might bring that up to the Nampa School District as well. Or I might even bring up well-being of the students as well to this Nampa School District, but it's going to resonate more with the families than it is the Nampa School District, because again, they're more concerned with like student success, costs, things like that. Okay, do you see the difference between those two things? The types of sources that they're both credible. We're always going to use credible sources, but the types of sources that we're going to be using are different. Okay, by touching on those values. Okay, and the way you write will change depending on who your audience is, but we will always stay the same for any audience when it comes to our tone and our language and avoiding aggression, right? So our tone should always be calm and reasonable, right? We think about an argument and you think about people yelling at each other. It should not be that way, right? An academic argument is always calm and reasonable. For example, a few semesters ago, I had a student that was very blameful towards their audience, right? They're blaming their audience. Would you receive that very well if someone would say, "You're doing this"? Would you want to keep reading? Probably not. You'd probably get pissed off and be like, whatever, I don't care about your problem. You think it's my problem and it's not, right? Bye. right? So it should be always calm, reasonable, respectful, right? Your language needs to be honest and clear and again, respectful, right? You should be clearly communicating. I care a lot about clarity, right? We talk about that with Angfish. Can I understand what you're saying? And going back to our audience, are we adjusting our language for that audience so that it's clear to them what we're trying to communicate? Things like that. Okay, so it should always be that way. And again, avoid those aggressive, confrontational, biased language and tone. Okay, that just puts people off. It doesn't lead to a good outcome when you start off that way. Okay, so always think respectful and be very clear with what you're saying. Okay. Any questions about this? Does anyone need me to go over the 4 different parts of this essay as well? The problem, solution, role, and audience, or do we have a pretty good understanding of that? All right. Well, that's all I have for you tonight. If you do have questions about the rhetorical situation or, how to localize your problem or what your problem should be, things like that, make sure that you are sending me an email or reaching out to Ellie or Harrison. We are all here to help you. Okay. All right, everyone, have a good night. I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Good night.